second session, and the second session will be about 13 presentators tell about their current status of their countries. So I will arrange by the alphabetical order. So as you see, it starts from Australia, and each presenter will be present over here. There is the pointer, and you can have some presentation about maybe 5 or 10 minutes, maximum 10 minutes. So you will hear about their country situation. And during the after presentation, there's no Q&A session. And after we finish 13 presentator, we will have the Q&A session. Okay? So first, the Paul Murray from Media, Entertainment and Art Alliance from Australia will present about the Australian media situation. Okay, take a pause.
Thank you very much. My presentation is only 3 or 5 minutes, which is what I was asked to do. Just a very brief presentation about the situation of journalism in Australia that I'm very pleased to be able to share with you. Journalism in Australia faces many of the same challenges seen in other parts of the world. The collapse of traditional business models as a result of advertising revenue increasingly being monopolised by Google and Facebook has seen a dramatic reduction in journalist numbers in Australia. In fact, over the last 10 years, as many as 1 in 4 Australian journalists have lost their jobs. That's a reduction of about 3,500 to 4,000 journalist positions in Australia. And this has placed incredible pressure on newsrooms and on individual journalists. We're starting to see important areas of coverage disappear, particularly in regional parts of Australia. Australia, as you'd be aware, is a very large continent. So a focus on the capital cities is only a small part of the country. And a big part of the impact on journalism in Australia has been in regional areas. So we're seeing regional communities no longer having their issues, their local court coverage, their local politics covered in any way to the same extent that it used to be. And that is a very bad thing for democracy. The market dominance of Google and Facebook and the impact they've had on traditional media companies has been the subject of a recent government inquiry. And that inquiry is considering recommendations to apply greater regulatory oversight to create a fairer and a more even market situation, both in terms of advertising, but also in terms of the obligations that should be put on tech companies who are in fact publishers to be bound by the same requirements, the same ethical obligations and the same regulatory obligations as more traditional media companies. I mean, most recently people may have seen the controversy that's arisen about Facebook Live broadcasts after the incredibly lengthy delay in Facebook responding to the live streaming from that horrific terrorist attack in Christchurch. Another great challenge to journalism in Australia at the moment is the increasing power of our police and security agencies. Australian journalists are now being swept up in a system of mass data surveillance where telecommunication companies are required to retain all communications data on their platforms and make it available on request to government agencies, which obviously has enormous implications in terms of the ability of journalists to be able to protect their confidential sources. Australia has seen what can only be described as an extraordinary overreaction since September 11, 2001. Over 70 individual pieces of national security legislation have been passed in Australia, and many of those pieces of legislation have had serious implications for whistleblowers and for journalists. Journalists now face significant jail terms in Australia for reporting in areas that the government decrees as being of national importance. And those areas are not very clearly defined in legislation. They're not restrained to serious threats to life, and they have extended, and we have seen them used quite comprehensively to prevent reporting on our border security and immigration system, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and not in a very good way, nor should you be, about the activity that's happened in Australia. So at a time when journalists around the world are facing harassment, violent assaults, imprisonment and murder, we believe it's vital that we resist this type of interference from government. The role of journalists in reporting freely and fearlessly on behalf of their communities is more important now than it has ever been, and our union and our journalist members are determined to protect those freedoms, and they send their solidarity to everyone here today engaged in the same struggle. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Exactly 4 minutes. Thank you so much. Next presenter is from Bahrain, Habib Tomi from Bahrain News Agency. He's the head of language section. Habib?
Hello, my name is Habib Toumi and I come from Bahrain. I'd like first to ask everybody here to stand up for 30 seconds as we pay tribute to all the victims of terrorism. We have had so many terrorist acts, and it's about time we journalists spoke very much against it. So please, can we stand for 30 seconds? Thank you. Thank you as a peace-loving community. That's very nice. So I come from Bahrain. Of course, many people ask me, where is Bahrain? So it's a very legitimate question, of course. All right, I hope I can handle this. Wow. Okay. Bahrain is in the Arabian Gulf, and it's one of the smallest countries in Asia. It's small, but it's cute. Why cute? Because it always hosts big events, great international events. And this weekend, Bahrain is hosting the second race of the Formula One. It's been hosting this race since 2004. In fact, Bahrain has so many grand events that journalists are kept busy all the year through. Professional journalism began in Bahrain in the 1930s. Today, the country has 6 dailies. They are 4 in Arabic and 2 in English. There are also newspapers in Asian languages for the communities there. Of course, that's very good for a country with a local population of 650,000 and expatriate population of 700,000 people. All Bahraini dailies are privately owned. The government has no official paper, thank God. And most journalists are Bahrainis, but there are also journalists from different countries working in Bahrain. There are 16 political parties in Bahrain. None of them has any newspaper. They have bulletins, they have magazines, but they have no newspapers. Okay. And so most of the journalists are Bahrainis, and the journalism community is not closed. As you can see, these are journalists working in Bahrain. In fact, Bahraini women are so good that when you look at this picture, you can see there's only 1 woman and 23 men. This was a media conference in an Asian country, and the woman is Bahraini. Oh. Okay, yeah. Okay. Okay, journalists in Bahrain are well organized. They have an association. Last month, they held their elections once every 2 years, and guess what? They elected a woman. Okay. Ahdiya Ahmed is the new president of the association. They elected also, so she's going to be the president for... There's the elections. You want to see Ahdi? Okay, here we go. Yeah, she does. Yeah. Okay. In fact, alongside Ahdiya, there were 3 other women elected out of 8. And here they are being received by the King of Bahrain, okay, just to show support for journalists. Okay, and in December, we had a former media figure, Fawzia Zainal, who was elected Speaker of the Parliament. It's good to be a journalist in Bahrain, in fact. Okay, there's a Bahrain Press Day, different from the International Day, Freedom Day, and here the top achievers are given awards. Okay, now in Bahrain, journalists have the freedom and the chance to meet up with different personalities easily. They can, of course, attend conferences, etc., and ask questions. In fact, there are no restrictions. It's really easy. Journalists can put pressure on companies. They can put pressure especially on the parliament. So they can change things, which is very good. But if you are a good journalist in Bahrain, you can come up with good scoops, good headlines. But, of course, there's always a but. The picture is not always perfect. There are lots of challenges at the same time. Some of them are here. First is keeping pace with fast changes. This has already been talked about. And with social media, with lots of things changing across the media spectrum, all journalists have to deal with social media. So that's a problem. Second problem is the worst, fake news. And you have lots of fake news, and that's a big issue that people are trying to deal with. And what is true, what is not true, what's propaganda, what's not propaganda. You know, everybody here is familiar with that. And the other problem, as Paul said, is happening in Australia, is you don't have enough advertisements. So the print copies are getting more and more new problems. And journalists here, some of them have lost their jobs. 2 newspapers have closed in the last couple of years. So there we have a problem. There's also tough competition, but because Bahrain is an open country, we have newspapers and magazines from different countries that are sold freely. There are no restrictions. So for some people, buying a British newspaper is more interesting than buying a Bahraini newspaper, especially if it has a page 3 picture. Okay. And the other problem is that we don't have a school for journalism or dedicated college for journalism. So people study journalism as part of the curriculum when they study other things or when they study public relations. And here we have a tough problem teaching young journalists to make the difference between real journalism and PR activities. Okay, so red lines, of course there are red lines. Okay, but the biggest red line is no to terrorism, no to extremism, and no to fanaticism. Under Bahrain's press law, journalists must not glorify terrorism, sectarianism, or extremism. And we have had cases, so we had problems with that. And again, I repeat, I know time restraints, etc. Possibilities for journalists to cover whatever they want are really here. This is a journalist friend of mine. This picture was taken on Friday, so 3 days ago. She was covering Holi, the festival of light celebrated by Hindus. And she too got involved in it, and they put the colors on her, etc. So yes, that's if you want to be a good journalist. Okay? So in general, for journalists in Bahrain, the idea is simple. Live in peace and let others live in peace. Have your own fun. Okay? Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you, Habib. It's very
thank you.
Good presentation.
Okay,
Next, from Costa Rica, about 17-hour difference from Korea to Costa Rica. And Dennis Jose Maria Guzman, he's the director of the Horizontes TV. He will be present about Costa Rica media.
Somebody take my sign, so I prefer put this here. Dear friends, First of all, my thanks to the organizers of this event and the invitation we received to be here in Korea in the name of my country. I come from a small country that is recognized in the world for having more than 70 years of political stable, respectful of human rights, freedom, expression, defense of the environment, and a country that decided to eradicate the army as a guarantee of political stability and to be able to direct those resources that were spent on education, health, and protection of the environment, and the defense of the rights of all Costa Ricans and our immigrants, because we are a small country, 5 million people, but 2 million of immigrants, especially from South and Central America. We are a green country. I invite you to visit us and stay there for 2 weeks or more. Costa Rica has a diversity of media. All are with complete freedom, and none has been censored and much less closed by its programs, which in some cases strongly criticize our authorities. Sometimes we have a really serious critics to the president, and we don't have problems with that. We believe in our institutionality and our democracy. Allow everyone, absolutely everyone, to say what we think. However, there is an interesting debate in our Congress about the extent of the press freedom and libertinism of expression, because sometimes they reach the limits are slender and denigrate the name of a person for political reasons or even for a simple suspicion with that. Nothing has been verified. We say that the press could not be adjusted because in our case, Costa Rica believes, and our judicial system is independent and enjoys the confidence of the populations. This adds of the fact that social networks today are a means of information that allow anonymity, have put our congressmen to value not limit the freedom of expression, but rather to make it more secure, more aware of this important, and to fight against fake news or false information. The recent attacks in New Zealand, where social networks could not immediately block that was happening at the time of such a tragedy and deplorable situation, should make us think about how far this is freedom of expression, or whether there should definitely be a limit to this situation that will stimulate other mental patients or imitate such aberrant acts. That's why in our country, in Costa Rica, the media is not discussed, but how to raise awareness to that we do not reach these extremes, that we do not help a better press quality. Costa Rica is located in Central America. We fly to here for almost 2 days and is in a very complex region and where many journalists have been killed for their opinions, as in Mexico, Honduras, El Salvador. In Nicaragua, there are journalists in prison, and in Venezuela, there is no freedom of the press, and they have closed dozens of media outlets. This tells us that freedom of expression is certain areas in a danger, and we must all work to denounce these cases. As director of a media such Horizons TV, a program in which every week we invite ambassadors and diplomats accredited in our country to know about the state of the relations between Costa Rica and the international community. We know the realities of each country on freedom of expression. And as a means of communication, and as a country that defends the right of the people to express themselves, we ask all governments to defend this human right, but also the companies of social network to be very careful that their information is not seek more minds of people who are full or of hate and rejection. Of media, some consider it as a fully power, and based on this, we must proceed with care, prudence, and respect. Costa Rica respects the most important human right, that is the possibility to say what you think. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis. Next is from France, Molovich Dorian, L'Aqua daily newspaper. He's the Asian editor. Molovich?
Because 3 minutes.
Oh, it's okay.
Short,
Yeah,
right?
we have plenty of time.
I tried to 3 points, 1 minute for each point. I warned my voice before, so I'm fine. I will articulate my short. Sorry, it's too loud.
Oh, Costa Rica.
I love Costa Rica. A real democracy. No, I make it short but efficient. I would articulate my presentation in 3 points: economic model, fake news, and credibility. The economic model, as we knew it before, is over with internet, websites, and other platforms. The reality is people buy less and less print newspapers. The youngsters, they don't buy newspaper. People are getting older. So the mechanical system is already a little bit broken. And the youngsters, they want to get news. They get news on their phones, tablet, or computers, but they don't want to pay for it. Because this is a young generation, the music is free, they can, stream everything, they can get everything free. So the news, they don't realize that news is expensive. And as my Australian colleague said, advertisement is very low. Now they don't advertise in newspapers, and even on the websites, it's cheaper, and you don't get the same money for as in the printing system. So the new economic model, you have new platforms that have been created in France, full players on investigation, on certain topics, and so the reputation started to be serious. So that's an opportunity creation. You have to invent something. But then, to my second point is that how do you cope and fight against fake news? We talked about fake news. That's really the reality. If you don't have the financial means, you don't have journalists, professional journalists, you don't have trained journalists, and if you don't pay correctly, if you don't have the money to send them abroad, if you don't have the money to take the time to do a good job investigation, you are just repeating the agencies, AP, AFP, Reuters. Okay, you just take the news and put in the newspaper. There is nothing special, and there is also no distance, no explanation. So you need money, but that's a problem, because now you have a lot of NGOs, organizations, or movement. They don't, or even politicians, they don't go through the press to send that, to give their message to the public opinion. They can do it themselves. They have their own platform, and they can put in their platform whatever they want. That's kind of beginning of oriented and fake news also. And I would take the example, maybe you have followed what's happening in my country with the yellow jacket, right? Maybe you have seen the pictures. It's just terrible to think that, you have seen the Champs-Élysées in Paris and the fights and the police and it's the violence. And for 4 months, you have had a lot of yellow jacket or extreme right or extreme left people attacking physically the journalists, following and covering the demonstration because the yellow jacket or whoever considered that they were not following or covering the event properly. That means they say, oh, your TV is biased, you protect the president, and so it's biased. You don't tell the truth about our movement, so we strike you. They prevented some newspaper to be printed by blocking, the printing factory. So that's now the tension is very serious, and I think it's a bit dangerous because the politicians have a big responsibility too. I don't want to say that Trump started it about the fake news, but then, what starts in the States is usually, exports, the model, and the politicians now, middle, center, left, right, whatever, they say, oh, but that's journalists' fault. That's because they don't cover properly, they don't explain properly. So it has a huge impact on the public opinion that now, and it leads to my third point, is our credibility is really affected. So the people say, oh no, we don't trust you. Oh, the journalists, they are bought by the powers or by factories or industries or whatever. So that's a real problem. My newspaper publishes every year a media barometer to ask the people on their opinion on the press. The results this year is terrible. TV credibility is 0 on information. They say we don't trust TV, especially, all-day TV news. They repeat themselves, same pictures, same things, nothing new, nothing deep. So, okay, radio is better. Still the print, the mainstream newspapers, 2, 3, because a lot of newspapers have closed also, like in Australia and other countries. We are still considered quite serious because maybe we still have money, we still try to make things, we take time, not to react emotionally and analysis, some distance, opinion, interviews, all that kind of journalistic means we can use, but we need time and money. But still, journalists are less and less secure in their job. So we are back to point 1. I mean, the money. So it's urgent to find a new economic model, and also, but I think we are getting weaker and weaker, and so that's a threat to the democracy because free press is a pillar, but a free press is one thing, but a free press must be alive, right? A dead free press doesn't mean anything. So I'm not that much optimistic. The situation is not desperate yet. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not desperate yet, so we count on some hope. Next is from Georgia, Katuna Chapikates, from Georgian Technical University, San Diego State University. Georgia? Okay. Katuna? Yeah.
Hello. As I have been introduced, I'm Katuna Chapikates from Georgia, the Republic of Georgia. Now it's been called Georgia already, but we've started with after the Soviet experience. The Soviet experience. It was the republic. It was the consistent republic of the Soviet Union. And since the 90s, we started our second, let's say, republic and independent republic. But it's been, I didn't prepare the location of the country, but I assume maybe you know about that. Georgia is part of the Caucasus, and especially we call the region of South Caucasus, along with Armenia and Azerbaijan. And we're trying and striving towards democracy as it can be promoted like that. So the situation regarding journalism, maybe some quick facts about the whole situation. Georgia is as it has been kind of promoted by the Freedom House mainly, as a huge human rights and press freedom analysis, let's say, the organization which analyzes all of these issues. Freedom of the press, based on the data in 2017, has been analyzed as partly free. It's called partly free regarding Georgia, on the example of Georgia. Well, contributive factors are, of course, legal environment and political also environment, or also economic development. And we can kind of analyze that practically the whole picture is not that bad, not maybe causes the grounds for optimism also, but I would say that actually, after all, I can say it might cause any positive, directions for development, and it can be the promising picture in future. We are trying, at least. What I could show you regarding the also analysis how it's been assessed, the freest and most diverse media environment in Georgia, in the South Caucasus region as a locality. But how it's been analyzed like this, through political polarization and close links between media companies and politicians. Here we have the challenge, because it is the issue where we practically see, despite that it has not been owned any, for instance, any media outlet by any political figures and politicians. We still see the interest, political interest included in media outlets, for sure. Especially, I would underline, because we have the limited time, I have a lot to say, believe me, but we have to be very concrete, as I understand. So it's been a very long, let's say, long issue with a private media outlet, which is called Rustavi 2, and it is actually the most prominent and the major opposition, I would say, opposition media outlet, where also the interests of politicians, and in concrete of the former government led by Mikhail Saakashvili, you might know maybe him. He was quite a popular figure afterwards. He continued in Ukrainian politics, being the governor of Odessa. Actually, he resigned after that, but still, he still is quite involved in politics in Ukraine as a post-Soviet space, and also he has some, I think, some ambitions to come back in the Georgian politics as well. So he was the leader of the United National Movement. He resigned quite recently, but in this media outlet, we actually see the influence of this political party, so the former government party of Georgia. But as now the current situation is that the current government is, it's been changed since 2012 after the elections, very crucial elections in the Georgian political history. And we see the, of course, it's another party, Georgian Dream, it's been called. And there is this tense relations between the Georgian Dream and also United National Movement, the former government. So it's been how it's been translated. It's the political issue, but it's been translated through the example of the media battle, we can say. So on the example of Rustavi too, for sure. But also it's been quite, I think, quite accepted opinion that Rustavi too and this legal dispute over the ownership of this company, which is quite debated. It's still, it can show the political, let's say, the influence of the current government's political interests, kind of to undermine this company and ownership of the company. Here, practically, I wouldn't avoid not to show, to show you this kind of a picture, how it's been involved, the political party, the United National Movement, the former government, and officials. Here you see Mikhail Saakashvili, Giga Bokeria, Secretary of the United National Movement and Security Council of Georgia, former, during the previous government, and they are actually quite a huge interference in this private media outlet, Rustavi 2's business. On the right side, it's the General Director of Rustavi 2, Nika Gvaramia. Another issue which has been practically underlined in this media analysis even on annual basis, it's the closure of popular political programs and TV shows and talk shows on private, let's say on private channels, but also on public broadcaster. Which of course is not a very positive signal, and we can trace some political interests, of course, on the backside, and also interference in editorial decisions for sure can be traced. But also, yeah, well, it was, I think, quite important issue that Georgia finalized its transition. Maybe it's been assessed as quite a positive, actually, achievement, which it can be for sure, to digital broadcasting, actually in 2016. And we have quite interesting institute for development of freedom of information, which not also assisted this process to be finalized successfully, but also involved in a general media analysis support for analytical work as well as technical, maybe surprising, and assisting with technical issues. And also I would finalize with quite critical case of Azerbaijani journalist. He originally resided in Azerbaijan, and ethnically he's Azerbaijani. His name is Afgan Muhtarli, and whose case came into the Georgia's, let's say, in the news, and it has been covered quite hugely in Georgian media and also by human rights organizations, because this journalist who left Azerbaijan and moved to Georgia since, as it's been reported, since 2015, for several years he lived in Georgia. He was kidnapped in the center of Tbilisi, capital city of Georgia, as it's been found by Azerbaijani, practically, some security forces. And he was driven he actually crossed the border, but he was alleged that he illegally crossed this border, and he was also accused of smuggling money, and he said that 10,000 euros appeared in his pocket when he was just crossing the border, Georgian-Azerbaijani border. Well, official information and also statements, what they say about this case. It was a quite, Azerbaijani Prosecutor General's office, it declared that it's inner Azerbaijani business what to do with this journalist. However, we had quite huge actually demonstrations in Georgia, and journalists, the colleagues, they united in this sense with the human rights activists as well to condemn publicly this kind of an incident, but we also try to somehow maybe mediate to release him, but it doesn't seem to be actually realistic. But some other human rights defenders, Thomas Hammerberg, as far as I remember, he also declared that this is also, this gives us some doubt, raises doubt that perhaps Azerbaijani forces were not the only one to blame in this incident, but also maybe some links with the Georgian security forces can be traced there, which cannot be, groundless, let's say, accusation. Thanks. I'm really can speak quite a lot about the the problems with journalism and the political aspects, especially about that. However, still, I can say that we really, the country tries its best to modernize or westernize, how it can be called. Of course, the American interest also and influence is very, very much can be traced in Georgian politics and in any kind of developments, I would say. Because we have this course towards, especially towards integration into the European Union, but also maybe joining NATO, which is already a military alliance, and which can be quite, I would say, quite a statement, very, at the same time, quite, loud statement in international system and the politics overall. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katrina. It's very important. Impressive presentation. Thank you. Next from Iran, Alireza Bahrami. He's the chief editor, ISNA News Agency. He'll present about Iran media status.
درود عصر بخیر. Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
Are you tired? Of course, no. Good conference, congress, and good colleagues, and good times. Like other countries, Iranian media have been affected by technological advances over the last few years. Although digitalism has promoted the speed of dissemination of information as well as the quality of the media, on the other hand, the media were heavily influenced by the trend towards social networks. In Iran, rapid and without gatekeeping communication of news on social networks has created harsh conditions for the official media. Although at various times it turned out that social networks are more republished information and content production continues to be centered around standard media. Thus, it can be said that cyberspace and social networks for media in Iran have been both an opportunity and a threat. For example, they have reduced the circulation of the press and have helped these media to become multidimensional. But I want to tell you an important notice. I'm not a diplomat, I'm a journalist, and this is a real story. What poses a huge threat to the media in Iran is the international constraints created by the President of the United States. Economical sanctions laws, especially for the paper press and publishing houses in Iran, have created very difficult conditions. For example, reducing the stock and the high price of paper, which reached 5 times the price of the previous year, has threatened the life of the press and publishing houses, especially the independent and liberal press and publishers in Iran. Meanwhile, government-backed media are the least harmed, but independent media are shutting down one after another. However, President Trump performs these pressures by claiming to help the Iranian people's freedom. As a journalist, I respect the choice of the people of the United States and the sovereignty of their country. But at the same time, I want my colleagues throughout the world, as well as the people and government of the United States, to know that the result of President Trump's policies against Iran is that all liberal media are being closed. Just know that I'm talking to you. In Iran, there is a Persian New Year holidays, and that's name is Nowruz. Some of these newspapers have announced that they will not be able to publish after the New Year holidays. Thank you for attention, and my best.
Thank you. Thank you, Alireza. Next will be from Kazakhstan. She will prepare some material. She is Bayan Ramazanova. Would you stand up? Would you have some welcome the pause? Okay, and sit down. Okay, thank you. And she will prepare about the Kazakhstan media situation. Okay, let's start.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, let me thank the Korean Association of Journalists for the invitation to the Media Forum. I am very glad that the idea to restore friendly cultural, trade and business relations between the countries started up on the Asian continent in the 21st century. Today, South Korea has picked up the torch, and thanks to our colleagues, we, the participants of the World Media Forum, will be able to see the economic progress and prosperity of the friendly Korean people. For over 27 years of Kazakhstan's independence, the two countries have established fruitful cooperation in the following areas: oil, energy, finance, economy, mechanical engineering, and other industries. Kazakhstan and the Republic of Korea share long-term interests and awareness of responsibility for international security and stability in Asia. More than 100,000 Koreans live in Kazakhstan. They are like a bridge of friendship between our peoples. We, the people of Kazakhstan, were pleased to hear about the opening of Kazakhstan Studies Department at Kangam University. Kazakh language is taught at the Department of Central Asian Studies at Hanguk University of Foreign Languages. More than 100 nations and nationalities live in Kazakhstan, and newspapers and magazines are published in many languages. TV and radio programs are broadcasted in many languages, including Korean. Last year, the 95th anniversary of the Korean language newspaper Karo Ilbo was celebrated. This newspaper was founded in 1923 in the Far East, and after the deportation of Koreans to Kazakhstan, Karo Ilbo has also been published in Kazakhstan for 85 years. It is the only newspaper in Korean language in the post-Soviet countries. The Korean theater in Almaty has also been operating for about 6 years. This year, Kazakhstani journalism celebrates the 60th anniversary of the Union of Journalists of Kazakhstan, and the members of our organization are about 5,000 people of different nationalities living in our country. At present, about 3,000 mass media are registered in the Republic of Kazakhstan. About 1,200 of them are newspapers and 1,300 are magazines. There are also about 300 electronic mass media, of which 170 are TV and radio companies and more than 40 are news agencies. Kazakhstan positions itself as a secular democratic state, and freedom of speech, like other democratic principles, are guaranteed by the Constitution. However, journalists have to work at their own risk and fight against amendments to the law that worsen the work of journalists and prevent citizens from receiving prompt, objective and complete information about the real situation in the country and the activities of the government agencies. The activities of the Union of Journalists of Kazakhstan are aimed at enabling journalists to cover openly and comprehensively the problems existing in the country and to develop democratic principles and freedoms adopted in the modern civilized world. I am sure that creative and business cooperation of Korean and Kazakhstani journalists will become more successful and fruitful. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Bayan. Yeah, it's a good presentation. Next, from Mongolia, Mandak Bayar Karuku. He is the president of the Confederation of Mongolian Journalists.
Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, delegates, and friends have to come from every corner of the world of this beautiful country. Honorable Mr. President Chung Gu-sung and Korean journalists and colleagues, let me extend my sincerest greetings to you. It's my great honor to represent Mongolia and Mongolian journalists at this big event demonstrating solidarity of journalists for the peace in the world. Profession of journalists allows me, a son of ordinary Mongolian herders family, an opportunity to stand in front of you for speech. On behalf of all guests, I would like to express my congratulations and heartfelt gratitude to the Journalists Association of Korea for hosting this great event over many years, bringing journalists together under one roof and making this conference as one of most awaited events. First of all, let me present you brief information about Mongolia, Mongolian national journalism and journalists. It was in 1913 when the first publication came out in Mongolia to lay the foundation of national journalism in Mongolia. This year marks its 160th anniversary. With 68 years of history, our Confederation of Mongolian Journalists was founded on January 16th of 1951. Today, it numbers over 10 professional unions, 446 media organizations, and some 4,700 journalists. I'm sure that all of us can share our views and role and engagement of journalists in the great deed of building peace in the world. I have no doubt that better initiatives and more important ideas would be forwarded. Taking this opportunity, I would like to say a lot, but let me highlight only one thing. I think we journalists assume two major tasks in front of our society we are living in. Firstly, we have to be a voice of truth. The second, our mission is to enlighten our community. We have to take great endeavors in ensuring people's right now and improving quality of news and information we deliver. I understand that these are the main mission of the journalism. We are living in Asia, Africa, Europe, America, and Australia. Social structure of society we are living in might be different. Since countries opt for different paths of development, which stick to different laws, different traditions, and different religions, and writing and broadcasting too. For example, Mongolia is a young democracy. Until 1990, Mongolia used to build socialist system. That time, Mongolian journalism was truly succeeding in performing its main mission to enlighten the public. Since 1990, when the democratic revolution has won, we could safeguard the press freedom. We are striving for developing free press with Mongolian specifics. We are aware of mistakes we did while failing to retain the huge expertise in enlightening the public. But we are taking efforts to consolidate achievements we have achieved and thereby to keep on all those accomplishments we have been passed down. Mongolians say it as riding two horses. I'm happy to state that Mongolian journalists have got two horses. We all cherish and protect our homeland. Mongolian journalists only can better understand and better love Mongolia. No one. But Korean journalists can better understand and better love Korea because they are Mongolians and they are Koreans. I'm sure that you agree with me. Who can love your country deeper than you? And now let's think about our planet. Earth is our motherland. It's a home to all of us. We all are children of the world. We all have equal rights. No one has less rights or more rights.
I dare to say you are my close friends. We love our world as we do mother and homeland. I have no doubt that you would not argue me. Then let's ask ourselves, whether we think that the world is home not only to me, but also to my friend. You might already have answers in your mind. When you grabbed your pen to write about the peace in the world, what do you write about your friend? Did you write that you both have equal rights and shared destiny? Did you manage to think how would the words coming out beneath your hands affect the soul and mind your friend? This is the main point. All countries differ by development models and levels. All nations have different histories, traditions, cultures, and religions. This difference must not lead the humankind to misunderstanding and hostility. People have to admit the difference and understanding each other. Peace comes from understanding, and journalists play a vital role in building the understanding. This is what we can do and what we have to do. What journalists' eyes see, what they feel, and what they understand are important for reaching understanding and building peace in the world. Regardless where you live, write or air, it's our journalists' duty to deliver a message and idea of living evenly with your friends on this planet. I would like to say this is the best thing we journalists can do for the peace in this world. I believe this is the most just and fair principle of the humankind. I would like to define this as the greatest deed of enlightening the people. For this, we have to take certain steps. Mongolian journalists declared this year as the year of international cooperation and launched a project, Media Tour. This year, we are going to travel 20 countries to make reporting about these countries. We plan to reach 50 countries within 3 years to come. So I wish to call my friends for the following. Listen to your friend if you want peace. Understand your friend if you want peace. Respect your friend if you want peace. If you want peace, give your friend a hug. I want you all hug your friend sitting next to you. Please, come on. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. We are journalists belonging to only world. I wish you all to listen to each other, the understanding and respect each other for the peace. And finally, I'm inviting you all to Mongolia. I wish to see you under eternal blue sky of Mongolia and colorful Mongolian steppe and Mongolian gobi with huge sand dunes in my amazing homeland, Mongolia. Thank you.
Thank you, President Karuk. Yes. Thank you. Next presenter will be from Nepal, Kubo Charles from TBI Publication Company. He's the editor of the TBI publication company.
Good afternoon and namaste. We say namaste in Nepal and India. It's namaste. It's very interesting that I've been hearing from the friends around the world, and most of the points that I have noted, they have already spoken. So I just go on surfacely on that. Like Paul from Australia, he said reduction of journalists, so less manpower. That's we are also facing in Nepal, and squeezing ad revenue, which is also due to modern or new media versus conservative media. We have to think about new economic model, like our friend from France said, well said. But this, just to remind or recapitulate, I want to tell you two examples from Nepal. Due to this new media and all these new technologies, online media is very much mushrooming in Nepal currently. But the government, what it did is, very interestingly, there is Electronic Transaction Act in Nepal. It is meant for the fraud and fake transaction, to check the fraud and fake transactions actually. But those media, online media, which are writing against the government or which the government doesn't like, the government started using that ETA, Electronic Transaction Act, and they send them to the jail. And interestingly, Nepal has a very powerful Federation of Nepalese Journalists, FNJ, and Press Union, Nepal Press Union. Both are affiliated to IFJ. They protested, they opposed, so those journalists were freed. So this is one example, and another is there is one new act, Right to Privacy. So it says you cannot take picture without the consent, which seems very good, very nice in words. But in practice, if a person is taking bribe from the other person, will a journalist go and ask him, excuse me, may I take your picture? Or he takes picture as a proof to his story. It's a very interesting debate we are having now. Though the government is not using it, enforcing it very strictly, Right to Privacy Act is also another very dangerous act that is curtailing, that is going to curtail the freedom of media. And this has happened. We, in Nepal, we have a very long tradition of free press, actually. Like my friend from Mongolia said, 1990, that date